Real quick before we get started, I just want to shout out Zulu's Games for sponsoring the event that we're covering today. So I would not have been able to get as much prizing without them. So I really do appreciate that. And I like to keep my events free, and them doing that just makes it a lot more possible, as well as making sure there's prizes that you guys want as well. So big shout outs again to Zulu's, and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 8 breakdown for a BT20 event that I ran this weekend. And real quick before we get started, one, if you guys are interested in card game events, I've been doing a lot more of that. Make sure to check out my Discord. It's where I'm going to be running these for Digimon, Dragon Ball Super, One Piece, Battle Spirit Saga when it drops out, so check out there. Two, big shout outs to Brian Reed for being the judge for this event, as well as Dane for helping me commentate for it as well. This was streamed on my Twitch channel, link is in the description, as well as on this document, which is also in the description, and by document I mean my website, Eggman Events. So this is like the first BT20 event that I've covered since there hasn't really been any, and so make sure to be check out this website. I'm going to be updating it for more events that happen along the way, and I've been trying really hard to make this a really good resource for you guys. So make sure to check it out if you guys haven't already. And I think that's about it. VODs on Twitch, should be re-uploading it by the end of the week too if you guys are interested for it. But this was 30 players. It was a free event, free to sign up. And there was 5 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 8 best of 3. I probably won't do another top 8 event because it just kind of made the event like twice as long, but Swiss best of 1 with pre-side is pretty nice for this event too. So we're probably going to be doing that more moving forward. But again, if you guys want more events, make sure to check out my Discord and just follow me on social media. I'll be promoting it as much as I can, and it should be a good time. So anyways, going on into this event specifically. So this is like the first BT20 event that I did, and the joke was that I ran this event so I could see what other people were building for this. But honestly, it was a really fun event. I think there were a lot of interesting decks. Again, more of a large locals, nothing too seriously for this, but I do think that there's a good kind of idea of what the meta looks like. In general, it's kind of just red and blue, kind of red's a little bit aggressive, blue's a little bit control. We've been seeing that for a long time. Crimson's gone banned, and so there's kind of like a power struggle for what's the blue deck. Aandroidd 21 is a really interesting and kind of abusive deck for this format too. So, but we did have 2 Syn Shenrons with 1 winning them, and also shoutouts to Poh Ann for joining this tournament. He was in Asia. It was like midnight to 6 a.m. for him, but he was super good. Can't wait to go over his deck. But 2 Syn Shenrons, 2 Aandroidd 21s, a TrunksGeta, a SS4 Goku, and Vegeta, so Gogeta. One of the Super Saiyan 2 Trunks, which is like the rebooted leader from the start of the Zenkai block, as well as a Commander Red, which was really interesting too. So we're going to go over each one of these topping lists, starting off with our first place one. So we do have Poh Ann's list right here. And again, Syn Shenron's pretty strong for what it is. Obviously, it'd get nerfed in a little bit, but there's a couple cards that got added into the archetype for this set that I do want to go over. So specifically, the first one is the obvious one. So Syn Shenron negative energy Animus. So this is a 19k blocker, 5k. Choose one of your other red Shadow Dragon cards and KO. When this card attacks or activates blocker, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in unison. It gets minus 15k power for the turn, which is kind of nice to get like that trade if you needed. But also at the end of your turn, you can switch this card to active mode, and then also activate main limit 1 if your leader is a red Shadow Dragon and your leader is a Z leader, or you have 6 or more Z energy, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand, you get to play this card. So being able to get a 19k blocker out for free, being able to take the card from your life, which is really helpful for making sure you get down to 3 for your Z Awaken if you need to. A really flexible card, and the fact that you get to attack and then you get to restand as a blocker, I think a very nice card. And the other really nice card is the Super Saiyan Son Gohan defending the demon. If you guys were watching the stream, I kept saying, man, this is a really good card in this deck, and it just does it all. Like I didn't really recognize it until this video, until the tournament started, that this is just such a very good card. So for it's unique, but it's not limit. Like unique is better than limit 1, since you can get rid of this, especially in Syn Shenron. There's ways to like give it minus power and get another one out, which is neat. But double strike blocker, if your leader counterplay, if your leader is red, you get to play this card. And then it has these 2 permanents for each Z energy and the cost of Z cards in your leader and battle area. Reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. And then for each card in your Z energy, reduce energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. So like turn 1 in Syn Shenron, this is just a 1 cost because you are just easily putting the cracked Dragon Balls into your Z energy. And then also when this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 20k power for the turn. So you get to play it for 1, give something minus 20k. It has double strike. It has the reduction on both turns. It has blocker. It's very good. It's very, very strong for what it is. You can play it just for 1 in your turn and just have like an attack. Like this can be a 20k attack, turn 1, going second as Ascension Run, which is really crazy. It just does it all. It's just so flexible for what it is. It's a 5k combo. It's also a Red Saiyan, which means that it can be used in decks that care about Red Saiyan. Since Shenron doesn't really care that much, but man, this just felt like the card that made the deck go from good to great in a lot of ways. Like this is a very, very strong card in this leader, and just how flexible it is. Like if you, I rarely say this, but if you like Sin Shenron, I think this is a staple must-have, and you should probably get this sooner than later. So that is the card there. But the rest of it pretty understood. Red Yellow Beerus, just better super combo. Trunks Deluge Power is great. A couple of your Shadow Dragons that you can run since some are banned, and a little bit of tech in the side there, but felt very, very strong. Wang Po is also just an amazing player, so it was really cool just to see him play live and be able to win this tournament too. And he was playing just for fun because I couldn't ship him the prizing anyways, but he was able to get that W, and just congratulations to him as well. He had and then he's like, yeah, I gotta go, I have a One Piece tournament. So I'm like, all right, good luck. I hope that one went well too. So congrats to Wang Po for their finish there. And then next up we have our second place Aandroidd 21 list. So this is Andrew's list here, and this is probably the deck that people a lot of people are like, oh, this is the new boogeyman or boogie woman for the format, and it's pretty scary for what it is. I will say it is a deck that it doesn't have. Sometimes its defensive power is really strange. You'll have like a bunch of 10Ks in hand and you can't do anything with it, or you just don't get like as much cycle as other decks because of it. However, the amount of removal that this deck has, and just like the removal is just like you can't play around it either. It's very, very silly. So and also I do want to just say, like, this secret rare is dumb. This is a dumb card in a lot of ways, and mostly because, especially in Dragon Ball Super, where end of time comes up a lot more than I feel like other card games. It is very good. Just the fact that you do get to heal life means that it just screws up your like end of time procedures. You get to do a board clear and a heal, right, with this card, which means that those are the two things that when you go into a tie matter, right? So let's say you're at 3 life, your opponent's at 5 life with a full board. You're on turn 3. You play this, you heal up to 5, you wipe their board, and you win in the spot, right? So it's just it's a really interesting card from that way. We've never really had like consistent heal cards in this game, and of course this is just a secret rare. It's a very searchable secret rare, but that was something I noticed in our matches when some of these. Aandroidd 21 is a slow playing deck too, so at least like the game is longer than usual. So this does come up, and it is impactful too. So really interesting. If more healing comes in this game and like the strength of this, it can. I'm not sure if we're going to change. Like end of time procedures are going to be weird for any of that, but everything else I think is pretty understood for this deck. The Pan Glimpse of Talent also is a really nice tech for us as well. Being able to use the Activate main, your opponent gains control of this card, which for how this deck works, the Aandroidd 21 says when you're paying the cost for Aandroidd 21 cards, you can use Aandroidd 21Z battle cards and your opponent's battle cards in unison as energy, which means you can't use your own battle cards, obviously. So except for your Aandroidd 21 Z battle cards. However, you can play this pan for 1. You can use the Activate main to give it to your opponent, and then that's a blue card on your opponent's side of the board that you can use to pay for cost. So it's a free card. It's a free draw 1, that's really, really silly. That helps you ramp into your plays at time, and it's really goofy to kind of how that works in a lot of ways. So, and then our Aandroidd 21s we care about. So this is your counterattack. You get to play this, and then you get to. This one ignores energy exhaust. When this played, choose up 20 opponent's back cards, ignoring barrier. Place it in its owner's drop. You can't attack with non-leaders for the turn unless they place 1 card for each of their hand and the energy in their owner's drop each time. And then also the 8 drop, which is just choose any number of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and place them in owner's drop. Like this is just a board clear on a double strike dual attack, which is great. And when your opponent activates a counter skill, they discard 2 cards from their hand too. So. And then at your turn, switch it to 5 of your energy to active mode. It does have to live for this effect because it doesn't really have protection, but at the same time, it's so good. It's such a good card for what you're getting. So and then being able to untap at the end is great. So lastly, we do have like the Aandroidd 21 Knave of Hunger, which is a generic ramp card for a lot of decks, which is interesting. And it's like a removal, and it can get like 2 cards removed, and like you can give your own stuff, like because you can Z stack. So you can Z stack your own Vegeta, and you can give it triple strike, or you can give it barrier for the turn too, if you really, really want to, because it's until the end of your opponent's next turn. Unlike Super 17, why are they giving it to this and not that? Anyways, we do have all this stuff here. I think the deck is very strong. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning period for people to learn a couple things: how to play the deck, how to play against the deck, as well as how to build the deck as well. But I think it's really obnoxious for what it is. I can't imagine how stressful the mirror match is, because you're constantly just having like being able to pay full cost with your opponent's cards, which is really silly. And generically, it's very good against blue and green, which means it's generically only good against blue because green's not in the meta. So, but if you're playing against blue, you are generically getting things for freer based on kind of how this archetype works. So, anyways, that's like the quick breakdown. I think this deck is pretty silly for what it is. And if it's not like the best deck in the format, it creates a lot of weird polarizing matchups. Some matchups just, I feel, can't beat this deck generically because it gets all the advantage because of like the color restrictions and like just generically what the colors of some of these cards are. And that's kind of terrifying in the sense like you have something that either like is okay, but sometimes just like hard negates and invalidates some other decks, which is kind of worrisome. But anyways, we'll see how that develops in the next couple of months. Again, congrats there to Andrew for their finish there. And then next up, we do have our top 4 SS4 Goku and Vegeta. This is pretty standard for what it is. This deck is still just like a really great aggro deck. This is the list from, let me make sure, Diego as well. So very, very strong for what it is. It's been relevant essentially since release. We did get some nerfs, but nothing I would say that's too new for this one. I will say I think the best way to beat Aandroidd 21 is to be like an earlier aggressive deck, especially an aggressive deck that doesn't run blue. So like red and yellow, I think if you have some red and yellow aggro decks, which I think both do exist in this format. We did see a couple of yellow aggro decks in this event, especially like the new star deck, yellow deck, but nothing made into top 8. But I think if that deck is strong enough, you're able to get some advantage on that matchup there. So, but I don't really honestly have much for this deck except for I'm just tired of it doing well, especially since like the deck is really good and it's a deck that like I feel like rewards the pilot at times, but from like a deck building kind of idea, it's just like this deck does the same thing more or less, and it's very, very strong. Secret Rare is great, and just everything with it. So I don't know, I am about ready. It's been out for over 6 months at this time, so it's been around for a long time, pretty much the same. Red Syn's kind of the same, but it's also got some bag of tricks. This can definitely benefit again from that Super Saiyan Gohan promo, and if you do have access to it, I highly recommend putting in this deck, because this deck does generate a above average amount of Z energy. You do already have your Yamchas, but you can only run that at 1, but I think the double strike for 2 is just, or for 1 is just crazy, and just how flexible that card is. So again, not too much more about this deck. It's still good, so don't worry if you still like the deck, you can still play it. And congrats there. Next up, we do have, this is Jared Lopez's top 4 TrunksGeta, and this is like one of the few times I've seen Jared not play an Aandroidd deck, which is really weird because there is like a new meta Aandroidd deck, but I talked to him a little bit. He's like, without Majin Buu at 4, it's very, very hard to play Aandroidd 16, and I do believe him in that. I think that card does carry that leader a little bit, and being at 1 is pretty stinky. So trying something new, and obviously it's the beginning of a new format. It's something where you can try some new cards out and some new decks, and what's better than a new deck than a leader that's been around for a year? But Trunks and Vegeta I think is great. There are some new little tools that we did get in this set generically for yellow. Primarily, we do have another Floodgate in Super Saiyan Vegeta. This is just the timing's a little bit different than the Frieza, but still very good for what this deck has. So during your opponent's turn, when your leader's yellow and your opponent has 2 more energy and have 2 or more Z energy, reduce the energy cost in your hand by 7. So and you're not too terribly worried about making Z energy in this deck. Also, when this card's played, your opponent can attack with non-leader cards unless they choose one of their active mode cards, switch to rest mode each time. And at the end of your turn, spend this card to owner's warp. Additionally, if you have a Z leader or a yellow Z battle card in play, you get to negate all the strike skills. So good in a lot of ways too. A little bit less impactful with Champa out of the game, obviously, but which is really interesting. I could probably make a whole video about my thoughts after the fact, like how different people play now that you can't get double striked out of nowhere. But another good Floodgate, and it's a blocker, so you can just combo it off, or you can block with it, so it can stop like 2 attacks essentially. It doesn't get like a negate, but the counterplay is really nice. Everything else, what else is there? Yeah, Trunks is a good unison, and the Majin Buu. This is just a good card. If you, I think it's just better than like it kind of replaces what Mira like. Man, how many cards have been banned around the Mira? The Mira deadly, what is it? Battering Mira Champa. One card survives out of that, and it's honestly the probably still the most jankiest one of them all. But this is a good replacement for it as well. For one, you get to play a 30k double strike. Essentially, that's all this is. It's a 10k combo, so you have to be worried. But it is a yellow card, so you don't have to be worried about charging it as much and everything like that. Which means that we do have room for Secret Identity Mass Saiyan because it's back now, so you can play that pretty nice. And I think that's really all I want to say for this. I don't know. Jared's a great player. Really cool to see him do well with another deck. Really interesting. We'll see what he ends up doing after this, but I think this is not a bad deck to keep playing, and congrats there. All right, next up, we got two of our more, I would say, wild card decks for this. So this here, let me make sure I get the name. This is Maverick Steele's top 8 Super Saiyan Trunks Envoy of Justice Returns. And real quick, he was undefeated in Swiss for this event, and then at the round 1 of top 8, he went into... It was really, really close. They played Aandroidd 21, and it took literally all 70 minutes for that game 1. So it's still a best of 1 in there, and it's just such a grind matchup. And I think again, like that healing mechanic for that kind of like helped turn the tide for it a little bit. But I think there's again like this big vacuum of, all right, Crimson's gone. What is the deck that we're going to use to replace it, right? I think Soul Striker's on a lot of people's minds, but this Super Saiyan Trunks is very, very good for what is. Also, if we got any DBS decks, Planet devs, please fix this card. Just fix the. I don't know why the like, because normally it has like the autos and stuff in space. It's not working for this guy. I don't know. But it has a cute little permanent that works with the archetype that we're definitely not playing. Of if you would add a card from your left to your hand, place this. You don't take crit damage essentially, which is really nice. Just generically to have. Auto, when this card attacks like top 5 card of your deck, add up to 1 Saiyan or Earthling. Both blue are with an energy cost of 4 less. Or 1 blue unison with specified cost of 2, add to your hand. So I don't think we're playing any unisons that cost 2. We do have the baby one, this is a solid one as well. And then, but just a blue Saiyan with cost of 4 or less. It is the Super Saiyan Rose. It's Vegeta, Pan. Just a lot of good cards that you can add to your hand from that generically, which is nice. It does have to be blue. Yeah. So you can't get this guy, but it's nice for what it is. And then on the Awaken side, same thing. So when this attacks, you get to draw 1. It's also not once per turn. So if you play your Crimson, or not your Crimson, but your Secret Rare Boy, you're beyond the ultimate. You get to get another draw, which is nice. Also, at the end of your turn, you get to untap 1, which is great. And then also activate main once per turn for 2 blue, draw 1 card, then choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards placed at the bottom of his deck. Additionally, if you have a mono blue Z battle card with any cost of 5 or more in play, this gets plus 10k power and double strike for the turn. So essentially this guy, which is nice. I mean, you do get also like the benefit of this getting a cycle. I guess it's to set up the deck, but that's not what we do here. But honestly, being able to, like, a lot of decks like run like Saiyan Instincts to be able to say, you know what, I've got extra energy this turn, I'm just going to draw 2 kind of stuff. But this is still pretty good for what it is. You do get to do like this for 2 energy. You can go essentially plus 2 by drawing 1 and getting rid of a card, which is nice. So weirdly enough, sometimes there's just like a big secret rare. It doesn't have any protection, but it's just like a big body you need to get rid of. Paying 2 is fine, especially when you technically only pay 1, since you get 1 energy back at the end of your turn 2. So I think that's a solid card. And again, you get to draw a card. So it's just like, it's just value. It's just like generic value, even though this is for an archetype that's a little bit weird. This is still like a generically good leader for what it is. So I was not expecting this leader to do as well as it did. A couple of people were on it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I wonder why the decision for it, and it's just, I'd say Crimson probably is like better generically for the amount of value that you can get, but this is still pretty good for what it is. And I think it's something that people should maybe try out and say, oh, you know what, this does get value. This is helpful for what we're doing, and it's pretty nice there. So anyways, congrats to Maverick there. And to finish it off, we do have probably the most surprising deck for it. This is, let me make sure the name, this is Andrew Lawrence's top 8 Commander Red. And this is, I think, if I remember right, I was story time. So this is a tournament for me that I ran. I started at 8 a.m. Arizona time because it was 11 a.m. For East Coast time. I wanted to have something that was like in the same, like people from across the United States could run, right? Which means that I was getting up at like before 6 a.m. to make sure that everyone was checking in and getting in right. So I was exhausted. And so he checks in. It's like 7:30. I did like 7 a.m. We're done with stuff. 7:30. If you haven't submitted, like check-in's closed, submit your deck list by then. You have 30 minutes. Like at like 7:40, he's like, "Hey, is it too late?" I'm like, and there was like 29 people, so it would make an even 30. So I'm like, all right, sure, go for it. You can get in there. And then he submits Red Ribbon. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's he's showing up in like 10 minutes and submitting a meme deck. Crazy. But it was really cool for what it did. Congratulations for getting that top 8 as well. With again, this is he was also the person who topped the regionals with Aandroidd 13 as well. So definitely making the use of, I think, more interesting archetypes. Definitely getting the idea that, you know what, my opponent's not going to know what I'm doing 100%, and that's just value in itself. So a little bit of cheese in that sense, but there are some like kind of good things for this deck. I'm still honestly not 100% sold, but just the idea that this deck can get some value for it and do some funky stuff. So if you don't know what this does, auto choose 1 red ribbon with energy cost 2 or less places. Dropping this attacks, you just get to draw 1 and untap 1. And also when your commander red is placed and you drop area by one of your skills, add cards from your life to your hand until this is 6 or less, and then flip this card over. So I think this is also now that we're not as much in like a counterplay like turn 1 and 2, that those don't really exist as much, especially like with Trunks. It's a little bit easier to actually just play a 2-drop and then let it stick to be able to use this effect. So I would say this is like a slightly worse Golden Frieza in a lot of ways for that kind of idea. And then also when this attacks, you get to draw 1 on the backside. Once per turn at the end of your battle in which one of your red ribbon armies with any cost 2 or less attacked, you may place a drop area, draw 1, and then switch 1 to active mode. So being able to get some energy cycle is great. Unfortunately, it's only on tap 1, so you can't like benefit energy, but you get the card draw as well. So you can do stuff like have like an Aandroidd 18. This is like a 15k on attack. You get the draw after you play like the top 3, and then you get to attack, and then you get the cycle for it. So it's kind of like a more aggressive blue deck, and not as much tempo, but it's really good there. And then also choose 2 of your opponent's battle cards, then you cost a 4 or less, place a bomb in your deck. So just whatever, just fine removal for what it is. This is like it. Aandroidd 21 gets hit in the crossfire by this a little bit, but just the idea that this deck can get a lot of like tinier attacks early game, and then you get like a free awaken for it. You do have to make sure that one of your commander reds do stick for it. And then from there, you just get a lot of value from being able to play like your general blues and being able to, you know, pop the violets to make sure that you're able to get your energy back and your draw 1. And there's also like the red ribbon robot villainous threat. This is okay. You still have to put like a lot of energy for. You have to pay 1 to play it, which is 25k. You know, activating once per turn, place 1 of your villainous or red ribbon army cards to its drop, and this gains critical for the turn, which is kind of neat when you can use something like the Gohan. So choose up to 2 of your cards, switch them active mode, and if you switch a card to active by this skill, it gains critical for the turn. So you can switch itself and this villainous threat back to active mode, which means that this is 2 swings for crit. This essentially is 2 swings for crit. So a lot of crit pressure, which is neat for a deck like this. And yeah, so it's just really neat. I'd say neat is the word I'm going to keep using for this. But in general, I think that a lot of people were kind of in a cage creatively for what decks are viable right now, and I think there's still like a lot to go back in time, and I honestly don't have enough time to do that right now, but I think there's like a lot of cool stuff. You know what, I go back to this deck, it's actually a lot better than I thought it was. There's some neat stuff for it, and I think it's really neat. So anyways, that is the deck there. Congratulations on their top 8 finish, and that is going to be it for us. Again, a little bit more of a casual or smaller tournament, but I'm really excited for BT20. We have a regionals next week, and I want to make sure that people were ready for it and got some games in before we did. So I really appreciate these events. Make sure again to follow my Discord and my social medias just to get the announcements. If you guys want to join future tournaments, I tend to make them free to make sure that just people, you know, that's not a stopgap for people, and just, you know, webcam events are what they are. So I want to make sure that people have an avenue for playing, testing, and having a good time as well. So that's going to be it for me. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again to both Brian and also to Dane for helping me for the event too. I could not have done it without them. And again, that's going to be it. So thank you for watching. I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.